Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Xavier Edwards, and you're listening to Fish on First Live.
Fish on First Live, presented by About the Fans. If you want to support us, get some of our new merchandise. The information is to be down below the entire stream. If you want a discount code to help us out, use code FOF10. That's FOF10 when you're at checkout. And I am your host, Nate Carsberg, for the third time. Third different setup in the past 3 streams, but we power through on here, guys. That's what we do. So pretty good panel. We got a pretty exciting stream coming up, coming off a great series in Cincinnati. I'm joined by Eli Sussman, Isaac DeZute, and Kevin Brawl. Guys, how are the vibes? How are the vibes after last series?
Better than expected, I think. I know we all predicted a 2 out of 3. A lot of us did anyway, but it just felt like going in and like something might go wrong. But, you know, with Max, Eddie, and Sandy, you're hoping one of them would do really well, which it was true in Max's case. We'll get into that later. And you're just hoping you'd luck into another win, which they did on Tuesday. And we'll talk about the Sandy start later on in the show, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we should just go game by game here. Oh, sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
I mean, I was going to say after this series, we could extend Augustin Ramirez. I think it's World Series or bust. And Max Meyer could be the All-Star, you know, Cy Young Award winner. So
that sounds pretty rational.
Good 48
I think we should go. I think we should go game by game here, just with this series. I think it definitely warrants it. So, Kevin, you were there game 1. Talk to us about Max, man. That guy was awesome. He was probably, easily the best start of his career and just an all-around good game by the Fish.
Well, I mean, you said best start of his career. You could even go and say one of the best starts in franchise history. You know, 14 strikeouts, up there with some crazy, you know, really good pitchers in Marlins history. And it's like, I think Eli put out this tweet, which I found pretty cool. Like 0-2, it's about 67% of the time he's going to throw you the slider, and people know he's going to go with the slider because that's the one pitch he throws more than any other, and by a wide margin. Still swung at it, still just didn't see it coming. And I mean, he had 16 whiffs with that pitch, just, you know, in that start alone, which is extremely impressive for any pitcher. And then he had the offense to back him up throughout, you know, most of the night. So it was a great game overall. You couldn't have asked for a better one for the Marlins there. So yeah, good start for Max. Now it's just a matter of can he keep going, and it was very efficient too. Like he was efficient, you know, got into some trouble there, and I want to say the 5th, but outside of that, I mean, he got to Ellie De La Cruz, was one of the hotter hitters in baseball. This is after a night where the Cincinnati Reds scored 24 runs over the Orioles, so it's only right that they would score 3 runs the next day. But yeah, I mean, Max was amazing. Obviously, Augustin Ramirez with the debut was as good as you could ask. On the offensive side, it took only 9 pitches to get a pass ball. And, you know, had some trouble with the base stealing. Also the issue in the second game, which we'll get into in a bit. But overall, I mean, Augustin had an awesome first game, but first series as well.
Yeah, what I want to jump into on Max is how, even though it's worth a lot of praise because of all the strikeouts that he compiled, the thing is, like, he's not that far removed from bringing a no-hitter into the 7th inning against the Mets. So this was a different style, of course. This is more dominant. It's just that the standard that he's quickly set for himself is so high that I felt some of the praise was a little over the top in terms of one of the best starts in franchise history when it's still only 6 innings. It was awesome, though. And just wanted to add that on Max and how you just zoom out. And he has been one of the more valuable pitchers in baseball this year because he's had several extraordinary starts and he's been so consistent. It's now 4 straight quality starts for a guy that struggled so much last year just to make it through 5 innings. And for him to now routinely make it through 6, I think that's been the biggest positive surprise is how efficient he's been.
Yeah, Neil, I love the tweet you put out. I think Max, as we all know, he's about as monotone as a guy that's in that Marlins clubhouse, and he was cheesing a lot in that post-game interview. So it's nice to see him happy. And me and Isaac saw yesterday he was playing ping pong against Ryan Weathers. He was all up in arms. It's a great vibe in that clubhouse right now. And I'll sit with you, Eli, for that second game. Me and Isaac were also talking about yesterday. I just had that feeling that they were going to come back in that game. It gave me a little bit of 2023 vibes. They were just hitting the ball well all day, and Lake Balter got his first win, so that was awesome. But they just threw that second game. It was it really was the Augustine Ramirez show.
Yeah, amazing. We had high expectations for him offensively, and these first two games just nearly perfect to get on base in all but one of his plate appearances the first two games, including going perfect in his plate appearances in that second game. The combination of hard contacts, but also of discipline as well. That is such the big separator between him and a lot of other like young hitters that we've hoped for, is a guy that already has such a comfortable approach that is willing to take his base when the situation presents itself. And because he can, I think it was in that game where he even, maybe in the previous game, whichever one, where he stole third base. Like, he's a guy that stole over 20 bases in the minors last year. It's not that he's a fast player, but relative to other catchers, he actually is, compared to Liam Hicks, for example, or just any average catcher. Like, that's another element where when he gets on base, he doesn't totally clog it up either. Still waiting on the home run, but he hit a couple balls in that game that were hard enough to be out of the park if he did elevate it at a certain level. Overall, the first two games behind the plate from him, like, there were moments where the main concern pops up, which is that physically catching the ball and closing your glove on it. He does that at a well below average level, but it didn't really hurt them these first two games either. There was that in that second game, there was that moment where really routine third strike, he drops, and then he rushes the throw to first base and almost throws it away, and they're able to get the out. That's the thing, that there's no scoring on that. That's something that you really wouldn't know it even happened unless you were actually watching at the time. And that's the stuff that I'm still a little bit weary of. I do wonder when he's catching and they get into a high leverage game. And to be fair, this was a 1-run game at the end, so he was catching important moments and he was successful in holding that lead. But that's really the one thing that I'm still sweating, is what that looks like when they're in a tie game and he's trying to catch a reliever that throws a lot of stuff in the dirt. Is he able to execute in all those situations, or does his defense end up being the difference in one of those games? But for the first two performances so far, it was amazing, and like, very quickly you can see why it is that we were so high on him, just because offensively that's going to more than overcome any of the defensive questions.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say it exceeded all of our expectations. And I'll go to you, Isaac, for the kind of tell me the short end of the stick here with the last game. It was not as fun as the first two, but you were also there. So talk to us about Sandy. Offense started hot with Matt Mervis, his 7th homer of the year, but didn't really get much going after that. Brady Singer kind of took over.
It was a pleasure to cover with you for the second time in our career, Nate. Great time as always. It's obviously the Sandy story, Sandy mode, according to him. I think we have to say it was encouraging, right? He went a season high 102 pitches. The even inning number Sandy was incredible. I think he's very close. I think he's very close. The command is just not quite there yet with the changeup. But other than that, I thought he was attacking the zone for the most part. The velocity was more than there, and the ground ball rate was also more than there from his Cy Young season. So I do think that he's really close. I think that it was 16 whiffs total on Wednesday's start, which was definitely encouraging. And his first quality start of the season, finished 6 complete innings for the first time this season. So overall, I think you can say that it was very encouraging to see him bounce back, especially after that 2-inning performance in Philadelphia, where he gave up 6 earned runs in what was, I guess, his second worst start of his major league career. Offensively, 2-out magic in the bottom of the first. Eric Wagman double, Matt Mervis 2-run blast. And after that, it was crickets against Brady Singer. He was just locating that sinker wherever he wanted it. It made it very tough for Miami's hitters. And I just don't understand why they keep opening. I know the Reds obviously didn't have trouble. They were seeing Sandy pretty well early on, but those shadows really come into play in these afternoon day games at Lone Depot Park. I'm sure it didn't make it any easier for Miami's hitters, but overall, you have to be pleased with the outcome. 2 out of 3 against a Reds team that was pretty hot going into it. Much needed off day, and they're going to see how they do on the West Coast starting tomorrow.
And that's one thing worth noting too with the roof open. And I know, Isaac, you spoke to a couple guys, and I don't know if you're still working on on the article, but a lot of guys still want that roof closed. Like, even, despite the success, it's tougher to hit with the roof open. It seems like that's the overall consensus. And a lot of balls, especially in that first weekend against Pittsburgh, just that were smoked and just did not go out. And even this past series against the Reds too, like, there were a lot of balls that were just hit. You would have thought those were easy homers, and maybe they were with the roof closed, but with the roof open, it's definitely been an issue. And I got to watch a 1 p.m. game already last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was rough. It was rough. Like, it's very noticeable. Those shadows are not easy because you see the ball clearly, and all of a sudden, it's a completely different look. So, yeah, we'll probably won't get many more of those open roof games. Now with the weather the way it's turning out, but I think they got their 13 games with the roof open. I think that'll be about it. Maybe one or two more scattered around, but I think this is it with the roof open.
Yeah, well, what Xavier Edwards told me was that he thinks that the pitches move differently when the windows and roof are open. It affects the shape of the pitches sometimes, and I found that sort of hard to believe. But I guess major leaguers saying it. Connor Norby's another one that strongly prefers to close. Jazz Chisholm was one. Yelich and Stanton were very outspoken about that as well. But I failed to be empathetic there. You guys are made, especially Stanton. Like, you can hit the ball out of any freaking ballpark, no matter the conditions. But yeah, it is interesting to see. I'm trying to get more quotes on that. I know the managers, some of the writers prefer to be open, and the fans also prefer it open. And who are you ballpark operating for? The fans or the players? So I think they need to find a way to win no matter the conditions.
Yeah, and I do like, Kevin, that you brought up so many balls yesterday were roped. Like, I mean, I think so many balls with the expected batting average were so high, balls that were just caught by Austin Hayes. I think I forgot who wasn't right in the last inning. He made two incredible catches. But Eli, I know you want to talk about the bullpen. We're going to start positive, though. Kevin, talk to me about Late Balker, man. I brought him up earlier. That guy, I think he might be a certified stud. He's pitching really well this year. Eli made the meme about him that you just drowned in Late Balker, and no one can get out of it so far. So what's working for Late so far this year, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, he's just a guy who's kind of been able to get to both lefties and righties. He's there you go. You've been drowned in Lake Balker with
poor guy, man. Get a better picture.
Man, I really don't know why they chose that photo, but yeah, I think McCullough's been pretty adamant about it. Why they don't have that second lefty in the bullpen, which they should and they still should, but he believes that Balker's a guy who could really just get to both lefties and righties. There's no issue. It's pretty neutral stuff, and it's just unhittable, man. Like, he's really good. Like, the velo is there. I mean, gets a lot of whiff, especially on the sweeper and the slider. It's a lot of like just whiff, and I mean, the slider, for example, 31.3 put away percentage. It's impressive, and he's just been unhittable. I don't know how much of it is just like not enough people have seen him. But I think it may be a combo of that. But I mean, the stuff is there. It's good. The velo's there. He's another guy who, as I noted at the beginning, is just pretty neutral when it comes to who he's going to face, and I think that certainly helps and makes it tougher for the hitter.
Rest of the bullpen, George Soriano, Anthony Vizzi weren't too good yesterday. They kind of gave away the game at the end. But talk to us about this bullpen situation, man. Only using one lefty is pretty bold.
Right. So there's the overview of it right now. The group that they've had for most of the year, they have had quite a bit of continuity. That George Soriano spot has shuffled around. Like, it's an interesting group overall. 6 of those 8 names have had their positive moments, but this is quietly like the rotation is a big concern with this team as well, outside of Max. But the bullpen's been a problem too, in a way that for a team that is hanging around right now, I just don't think they can be complacent. I'm just unclear in terms of why it is that, in particular, George Soriano, Tyler Phillips, when they acquired Tyler Phillips, I thought he was an emergency starting depth. He was a guy that had been a starter for most of his professional career. He was out of options. He got DFA'd by the Phillies at the time. And like, he had a low ERA through his first few outings, but there wasn't a moment where he had a real role on this bullpen. And that is, he was the one that brought the Reds back into that game in that series opener. When it looked like Marlins might cruise to a win, it was Phillips that made it a little bit more dicey than it should have been, in a way that he hasn't lost in many games yet. It's just that I'm kind of underwhelmed by how complacent they've been, because they're getting so much good production in AAA. Jacksonville, like, very quietly, the pitching in both AA and AAA has been amazing so far this year. We had an article from Alex Carver on about the pitch calling down there. And while there's been mixed results in the low minors, it's been amazing in the upper minors in terms of guys that so many guys that are having just a lot of success down there. And we're reaching a point of the season where, if you feel like there are room to improve on your actual major league roster, there are guys that are just a level below knocking on the door. I think we should just see some, that we're going to see eventually a fresh arm have to come in, as we did last weekend. This is a constant process where there are going to be changes due to fresh arms, but it just feels complacent to me that Soriano and Phillips are hanging around, just given the alternatives down there in AAA. I can show you some of the guys down there and the numbers that they're putting up, because it's a big collection if you include even guys that are starters in the minors and could have value in the big leagues. During spring training, one of the guys that really stood out was Jansen Junk, and they've stretched him out as a starter. Maybe they want to continue doing that, but it's hard to believe that he couldn't come up right now and be more valuable than a Phillips or a Soriano. And then look at the ERAs just all the way up and down from those guys that are in Jacksonville's bullpen right now. Josh Simpson has allowed 1 run, and he's a lefty. And John Rooney has allowed 1 run, and he's a lefty. I'm not saying these guys are perfect. Cade Gibson got his opportunity and then had to be I think that was even controversial. The fact that they sent him down just get Soriano back up. Like, it's just, as currently constructed, all due respect to Lake Bacher, I don't think there's a single guy in this current bullpen that you have unconditional trust in, where there's just going to be a lot of time. You're just going to need strength in numbers. You're going to have almost everybody in this bullpen have some sort of value to the current group. And to me, I just feel like they're being a little bit complacent. And this is a story to monitor just in Jacksonville. All the guys that are performing down there well down there. Last one I want to shout out is Seth Martinez, the guy that was twice DFA'd by the Marlins in spring training. He's still in the organization. He struck out 14 guys in 7 1/3 scoreless innings. He's been nearly perfect down there. He's been in the big leagues. He's the one guy here that has the most substantial big league experience and actual results. So maybe there's not pressure to make the move right now, but I just feel like very soon you got to give some of these guys a real opportunity compared to the low leverage guys in the current pen, because right now it's just not as deep a unit as others around the league. And if they want to give themselves any sort of chance at continuing to overachieve, you got to make some sort of decisions, even if it means DFAing some players that you're familiar with.
I know we spoke about it last night, but just look at the walks per nine for some of them. It seems to be a theme with AAA Jacksonville's bullpen. I'm not sure what's going on, but these guys like Simpson, Rooney, and Roberts, they're just walking a ton of guys. So maybe that's what's turning them off. But I agree that I think no competent bullpen should be having Soriano pitch in a close game like he did yesterday. I think that was waving the white flag practically.
Yeah. And it's something that should certainly bite them. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, and then not to give you the Alex Carver speak, but you even go down to Double-A. I mean, Eknes has been unhittable. I mean, that guy is really good. He could easily skip Triple-A, in my opinion, come right up. That's the Carver speak. But even the Double-A bullpen's been pretty good. I know Dale Stanovich a little bit older for his. I think that would help Isaac out in the call-up contest. So I'm sure you would be cool with that. Adam Last. No, Stanovich. Dale Stanovich.
Oh yeah, that's stud.
I mean, McCambly's been there for a while now, too. I mean, at least get him to AAA for the love of God. He's gotten off to a nice start for what it's worth. Yeah. So I'll give him that. I know he had a lot of injuries last year, but there's even guys in Double-A that could come up right now and help this team. But I think, and Isaac was mentioning it, like that, this AAA bullpen was atrocious last year. Like it wasn't even close to good. So to see the change in, just a year, how much better it is, not even at AAA, but at Double-A as well. It's good to see, and it shows that the depth is a lot better than what it was a year ago, and you're not calling up the Sean Andersons or the Roddery Munozes of the world to come up and help your bullpen out.
Definitely. Is there anything else anyone wants to touch on before we get into the farm this past series? All right, then we'll go straight to the farm then. It's been a busy week. I mean, especially after Augustine got called up. Joe Mack got promoted to AAA. Noble started yesterday, so I know all you guys follow the farm very closely, so we'll just go around the horn here. Eli, you want to start us out?
Yeah, Joe Mack is the really interesting one for him to get his opportunity there, coinciding with Augustine coming up to the big leagues, of course. And it's fun because now you have him. He's just a step away from the big leagues in a way that's going to be a really compelling narrative to follow throughout the season. Where like how soon do they give him an opportunity if he's already just knocking on the door one step below? The question I still had entering the season on Mac was his hit tool in particular. He had a breakout last year, of course, at Double-A, but the year before, like it's not that long ago in 2023 where we were really overlooking this guy. And there were like deep questions about all aspects of his offensive game. So I just didn't know what the true Joe Mack was, whether it was last year's breakout, the 2023 mediocrity, or somewhere in between. I was kind of leaning towards somewhere in between. And to this point in the season, it's been just a continuation of what he was doing last year, pretty much. In fact, it's been probably a little bit more encouraging because it hasn't been as power dependent. It's been more hit tool dependent. Let me just get the overall numbers that he has. Between the two levels, it's a 10-15 OPS, over 1,000 OPS so far this year as a 22-year-old catcher playing against much older competition in both AA and AAA with 3 homers, nearly as many walks as strikeouts. Yeah, he's an awesome player. He's now a top 100 prospect according to Baseball America. And I think a lot of other folks are going to come around to that. So they're in a difficult spot. We got to keep reminding people that Liam Hicks, he's a Rule 5 draft pick. So he's got to stick with the team throughout this year and can't be sent down to the minors unless they want to return him. But I think he's like giving himself some value as a player overall. So you don't want to return him earlier than you have to. You can never have too much depth. So with no fault of his own that he was put in the situation, he earned a spot on the opening day roster. That's going to be, but between Augustine and Mac, and of course Nick Fortes, not a relatively short-term injury. This is going to continue to be a really fascinating thing. Where I don't think there's a whole lot of clear answers in terms of how the Marlins handle it, which guys to have on the roster at the same time when all of them have some sort of value, whether it's Hicks and whether it's Fortes as a trade candidate in the near-term future. It's a very good problem to have, and it's a problem that they really haven't had at all in a long time. I remember, it must have been 2020, was it Fortes in 2021 that he got called up for the first time in September? When they had Fortes, they had they still had Jorge Alfaro on his last legs, but they also had Peyton Henry. They just acquired Peyton Henry into trade coming up before that. And that at the time, they had several young guys, but not ones that had that were perceived to have the kind of upside that both Augustine and Mac had. So that's really exciting because overall, both of those guys have an opportunity to fill that Real Muto void, which has been there for the better part of 5.5 years now.
I think it's also worth bringing up Davison. Like Davison finally started to heat up. Like finally, I mean, he's running a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 getting hit streak now in AAA Jacksonville. Had that 4-hit game the other day. 1 hit yesterday. But power still, I would say, lacking. He only had that one very impressive home run, dead center. Outside of that, he's still striking out so much, 26 strikeouts, but only against, only 8 walks. But, at some point, one of these guys, begin to struggle at the major league level. He's already 40 man. May as well do it at some point. Just like Augustin, he got, I believe, the extra year of service, the extra year. So it's worth doing it at that point. Other name I want to mention, PJ Morlando, debuted, had the home run. Not in the lineup today, which is weird, but yesterday he struck out 3 times. So I feel like that's worth doing, mentioning. And then I want to mention Jacob Marcy, because Jacob Marcy is such an interesting player, because he's only hitting 229, but he has a 413 OBP. He has walked 17 times, and he has 16 stolen bases, could play all 3 outfield spots very well. Feel like he's not your typical leadoff guy. He's more like of a 9-hole guy, I feel like, but he's a 4th outfielder. I feel like he still needs to get the average up a little bit. And it's not all about batting average, but if you want to hit and if you want to be an everyday guy, you're going to have to hit. And he's not doing that, but his approach is so great. So it's something that I've, enjoyed watching at AAA so far this year. That's definitely a guy who I'm going to have to do a little bit of a deeper dive, but Marcy is certainly someone who I could see coming up pretty soon, especially if, some guys in the outfield begin to flop.
Yeah. Isaac, any guys you want to go depth on from this past week?
Yeah, is there anyone left after? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And I was going to mention De Los Santos. I think it's worth mentioning. I obviously saw Cabo place on the 7-day IL. Luckily, it was just a left thumb sprain, from what I understand. But one of his teammates, just for Alex Ferrer, 17-year-old Andrew Salas at low A is getting on base at an insanely impressive rate, especially considering his age, considering that he started at full season ball with Jupiter in that ballpark. He's obviously not hitting for a lot of extra base hits or extra power right now, but it really is impressive to see the young kid come out there and not look overmatched whatsoever. Also, Xavier Meacham has had a little bit of a scoreless streak going. He's walking a few guys, but still, I think that's impressive. I know Carver will appreciate that name drop. And then it's also worth noting some, I guess, guys that got off the hot starts and have cooled down a bit. Dylan Head, one of those guys. Kemp Alderman also or Caleb Alderman's on the upside. I'm sorry. Head and Valor also struggling a bit after hot starts. But yeah, I think the low A Jupiter, Andrew Salas is the guy to keep an eye on.
And they're gonna have to make some moves in Jupiter soon, because with FCL starting up, I want to say in like a week or two, they're gonna have to send some guys down, and eventually you're gonna have to get some promotions. And that's such a weird team right now, because realistically, you want Dylan Head playing every day. You want a PGM Orlando playing every day. Carter Johnson. It helps a little. Not obviously, you don't want an injury, but for Johnson, it helps him play shortstop every day now with Salas. I'm sorry, with Kaba on the IL. You're gonna have to see what you're gonna do with Salas. I'm sure he'll stay up, after what you just mentioned at the start he's gotten off to. So it's going to be an interesting situation there. Beloit's probably the worst of the teams, so they're probably going to need some reinforcements, and that's not just because they need to win, because who cares about winning in the minors? Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But some guys probably need to be challenged. I would like to see Dylan Head be challenged soon. I know he's a little not slow start, just cooled off a little bit. But regardless, I mean, they challenged guys who were struggling last season and turned around for them a little bit. So I think never hurts to do with a guy like Head.
Well, you brought up Carter Johnson real quick, and I think this evaluation period is pretty big for him, because even though Salas is the youngest guy, I mean, Johnson is struggling so badly offensively, making contact. Like, if that continues another couple weeks, he's a guy that you might just give him FCL time to get calibrated again, even though they made a big investment in him. I guess among us, I was probably most optimistic about him coming out of the draft. And I tried to overlook last summer, which was bad for the most part, but he was challenged pretty quickly. And coming back the next year at the same level, it's been almost exactly the same stuff, where I just thought his hit tool was a lot better than it's shown so far. He may just need more time. He's the one probably most of all among to relieve the congestion of position players that they have in Jupiter. You'd like to, it would be in a perfect world, some of those guys would go up to Beloit, but he's the one he is definitely at risk of going the opposite way and probably getting maybe a little bit of a reset in the FCL.
Yeah, I wonder about you real quick, Eli, about Noble Meyer. I hate to bring him up again, but yesterday, 3 innings, 6 earned runs, 2 homers. What is your concern level right now with Noble?
Yeah, it's in the same way. There were concerns last year that have sort of carried over here. There was a encouraging spring training in the middle of it, sort of, where it looked like his velo was back up a bit compared to where it had been before. And he's somebody that it's easy to dream on him because of the room that he has to fill out physically, and also the way that he processes the game and how he is so aligned with this organization when it comes to pitch design fundamentals. He's somebody that you could very easily see getting better just from putting his mind to it. And the early returns so far have been very mixed. I think he was good in his previous start, and then he kind of just gave back all those gains. His most recent outing allowed 6 runs in the first inning, if I saw that correctly, in his last outing. And for a guy, what made his last year not a total wash is he was unhittable. Like, he got into trouble because of his really bad control, but he was so difficult to hit last year. And that continues to be something where that is encouraging moving forward. If a guy against much older competition is so difficult to square up. He did allow 5 hits, though, in his most recent outing. That's over just 3 innings. So overall, opponents hitting 234 against him, which doesn't sound great, but which sounds like decent for him. But that is a very pitcher-friendly league in the Midwest League, especially early in the year. And compared to last year, where last year he set a standard where guys were hitting in the mid-100s against him overall. There's not, to me, a sign of any clear progress to this point. So it's early on with him. At the same time, there are, at this point, his prospect stock, after dropping last year, it is kind of stagnant right now at best. And there's still quite a bit for him to prove. He could be spending a big chunk of this season at high A rather than being on any sort of fast track to the big leagues.
Well, someone I wanted to know really quickly, because I'm surprised we just haven't spoken about him, is Robbie Snelling. Robbie Snelling should be in AAA yesterday. Should have been there a while ago. Had to start. I want to say this was yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. Probably his best start of the season. 6 innings, 3 hits, no runs, no walks. 1 walk, struck out 9, tying a season high. He's really good. The velo's there, and I think Lewis mentioned him the other day. I think Ara mentioned him as well. Just the velo jump. So it's just, come on. Like, at this point, what else are they waiting for? I don't know how much of it is because of this pitch calling thing that they're keeping them there. I don't know, but I hope it's not that. but he should be in AAA. Thomas White had a weird start where he gave up a couple runs, but still struck out 6. It's been a little on and off with him so far, but I'm sure he'll tidy up and he should be in AA soon enough as well. But overall, the pitching's been pretty good, aside from, at least in the upper minors. The lower minors has been pretty bad, and Carver noted that in his article today that he put out, which was really good stuff. Just Jupiter and Beloit really just struggling on the pitching side, and the upper minors are the ones that are looking really good. So it's I don't know if it's what we think, but yeah, there it is. Yeah. Not been great.
Pensacola, they have the best ERA in minor league baseball out of 120 teams. They are number 1. Jacksonville, top 10 as well. And Jupiter kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum. People, even casual people, may have saw that Jupiter had that record-setting game for walks allowed. So that has been the main culprit with them in terms of controlling their stuff to this point.
Definitely. And we have hit the halfway point for the show. Let's start getting into this West Coast series, man. A little late night with the Fish action. Isaac, talk to us about this Mariners team, man. They started out a little bit slow, but they're hovering around 500. Anything stick out to you about these M's?
Well, I know that it seems to be more of the same with his ball club. I know that they just cannot find a way to get runs scored. I know they have one of the better pitching staffs in all of Major League Baseball. You saw Brian Rue the other day having an incredible outing. And just that Logan, I think Miami has to face Logan Gilbert. Is it tomorrow? Yeah. So it's not going to be fun. But just like the Marlins, it feels like you're going to be in most of these games just because the Mariners have such a tough time scoring runs, despite having one of the more fun, exciting players in Major League Baseball roaming center field. But just seems to be more of the same since the last 2 years of the Seattle Mariners. Just one of the best rotations in Major League Baseball. And it's just seemed limited. They don't spend a ton of money on their offense, and they just haven't really developed it at an incredible rate. So unfortunately for them, this could be a series where Miami, maybe could seal another series win, hopefully.
Yeah, it's Gilbert, Castillo, and Bryce Miller for
that is the 3-headed monster that Miami's not going to have a fun time seeing. Miami's had some success historically at that ballpark. Not great success, but they've never really been overmatched there. So hopefully more of that continues.
Yeah, we have no lineups yet. So any hitters on the Mariners, at least maybe I mean, do both sides here. Anyone that you're looking for a bid series here out in Seattle? We're going to Kevin first, I guess.
I'm looking forward to seeing what if Eric Wagman keeps us going. I know Krutchik put out the article. What is it, 11-game hit streak? Like all of a sudden he's been really good. And I'm liking that we mentioned Jesus Sanchez there in the comments because Sanchi it's been an interesting start for him, but he's walking like a lot. Like I know this team's been walking a lot, but for some reason Sanchez is, I don't know, I feel like the at-bats are just a lot better from previous years. It's 5 walks, only against 6 strikeouts. You 3-4 on base. Like it's not average, but it's the OBP, and I guess that's what they care about. And he had that crazy catch too. That was, I think, 2023. Yep. Norby also, like he's hit the ball hard, a couple times in this last series against Cincinnati, not going his way. I think it's a little bit of unluckiness. Had the big double and that second game, I want to say it was. So just hopefully you could keep it going. And then the Mariners, honestly, aside from Arozarena and Cal Raleigh, I couldn't tell you much of their guys.
Yeah, Raleigh's worth mentioning. He was one of my draft picks in fantasy baseball this year, and holy cow, I think one of the best offensive catchers in Major League Baseball. Leads the team in WAR, obviously 1.2. He's ranks 19th ranks 19th of all major leaguers in F4. Just what an breakout season for him, and it's really a tough one for the Marlins pitching staff, especially Quantrill.
Yeah, how about you, Eli? Anyone from this Mariners lineup stick out to you?
It does stick out that the production from Julio that kind of glossed over the fact that it's been so underwhelming to this point has been that's a main thing holding them back. He continues, of course, to hit near the top of their lineup. They're counting on him to bounce back. The underlying numbers look better than the actual production has been. Maybe the Marlins are running into him at the wrong time for them. Was it? I remember still vividly as a rookie when wasn't he in Miami as a rookie? And
first big league homer off of Sandy.
Yeah. So that was 2022, right? That must have been 2022. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first year covering. That's the only reason I remember.
Yeah.
Right. So I still remember that very clearly about how he's been a slow starter now several times. He was last year and then never really got it going. But then I think even the year before, every single year, including especially his rookie year, this year it's been, you see the path a little more clearly for when he's going to turn around. So it wouldn't be a surprise if he really explodes here. Ben Williamson recently called up third baseman. For whatever reason, he popped up to me last year when I was looking at trade possibilities between the Marlins and the Mariners. I didn't think he'd be big league ready quite this quickly, and he is. I remember in my head, I was trying to push this idea of Brian De La Cruz for Ben Williamson. At this time a year ago, that may have actually been kind of realistic. But now, given how imagine how both those guys have really fallen off. The fact that Williamson is now an everyday player in the big leagues, whereas DLC is an sometimes part-time player in AAA for the Braves. A lot has changed since then. So with Williamson, he doesn't have much power, but everything else is he's a pretty well-rounded guy at that position. So we'll see quite a bit of him. Otherwise, I do have to. I was watching their game today, and I was just mystified that like they scored 4 runs early against Garrett Crochet, who was really off his game today, uncharacteristically, and they did not score the rest of the game. They had all these opportunities as well. Like they're not an anemic offense; they're one that put together a lot of guys on base and put together threats. They're just, as was the case last year, where I think last year they had Brant Brown, old Marlins coach, on their staff. They ended up firing him early in the year because of that. So whatever they did hasn't really been fixed. Where the sum is less than the individual parts for this team offensively, where they just do not produce the runs that they should. And to echo what Isaac was saying, like it is just trending towards looking like last year, where the pitching staff is great and they're probably going to be over 500, but at the same time, they might be just below all the other postseason contenders just because they don't consistently drive in the runs that you think they should.
And one thing I want to
we can shift over to the Marlins side now. 2 guys that I want to ask you guys about right up the middle. Xavier Edwards and Otto Lopez have been slumping more than we'd like to admit recently, especially me with Xavier. But Isaac, talk to us about these 2 guys, man. 2 rough days yesterday as well.
Xavier and who? I'm sorry.
Otto.
Oh yeah, man. We were mentioning that together in the press box. Remember when for the Pirates series when Otto Lopez was the greatest second baseman in baseball. With X, he just seems to have a tough time putting anything in play that's not a fastball. Honestly, I know he's always struggled from the right side of the box, but it is a little bit tough to see him go through this stretch here. I think going into yesterday, he was in a 1-for-14 slump. He got to see a couple righties in a row and still just really struggling to get those line drives that we are so accustomed to seeing, especially to the opposite field. But I'm not worried. It just seems to be more of a streaky hitter than we had thought he would be down in his time with Jacksonville. So I'm not too concerned. He's just can help the team win in so many other ways. You know, if it were me, I would still flip-flop him and Otto defensively, but that's a story for another day. And then Otto, seems like he's pressing a little bit. It seems like he's trying to hit for a little bit more power than he should be, especially in that ballpark, especially with the roof open like that. He got a little bit power hungry after hitting one off the facing of the upper deck in right field. But yeah, Miami, their lineup, I can't believe I'm saying this. The lineup feels so deep that even with them struggling, I'm not hyper fixated on those 2 because the lineup, like I said, especially on Tuesday, when Dane Myers is hitting 9th and Otto is hitting 8th, you're okay if those guys are slumping at the moment because you have other guys picking them up. So I'm not too worried. But the one part that I would note is that Xavier has had a really, really streaky start to the season.
One thing I wanted to note in general with Seattle's lineup is like they're 3rd in the majors in walks, and we spoke about the Marlins pitching, we spoke about the Marlins bullpen. They lead the majors in walks per 9. So Eli noted it's a team that gets on base a lot. They're going to be getting on base a lot probably this series. So it's going to be a tough go. This is not an anemic offense, as Eli mentioned, but one that's going to struggle to score runs. This may be the one where they kind of break open a little bit and they get a couple runs in there. But yeah, it's going to be a rough go for this series. And honestly, not just this series, this upcoming week, got to go to Seattle for 3, LA for 3, and then you come back to face the A's and Los Angeles again, the Dodgers. So this could be the week where it all falls apart again, like we mentioned it last week, or they gotta stay afloat.
Yeah, I'll stay with you, Kevin. You just talked to Kyle Stowers recently for Unfiltered. He had a huge pinch hit 3-run bomb on what was that, Tuesday. Talk to us about Kyle, man. He's really surprised all of us just to start the year.
Yeah, I think we all assumed maybe this would cool off at one point, starting to see the old Kyle Stowers, but just doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, he's still striking out a lot, but he's walking a lot as well, which helps. Just like most of this lineup is walking a lot. But yeah, I mean, Powers is there. He's still hitting the ball on the ground a lot, I want to say, but it's starting to elevate a lot more. He had a really that pinch hit homer was impressive. And talking to someone in the press box, and they're saying, you know, the way the wind blows, you know, against that, it was an impressive opposite field homer. in that game, which they really needed for insurance. So, yeah, I like what I'm seeing from Stowers. Defensively, too, he's been pretty good. He made a couple nice plays this last series against the Reds. So, keep playing him. I think that's the best thing, the best way to say it. And they're going to need him, too, a lot because with Griff now out, for what we should assume is going to be most of the season, they really need his power, especially, with what happened. And you never know. I mean, Mervis could cool off. Wagman could cool off a little bit, too. And all of a sudden, you're relying on Kyle Stowers and Jesus Sanchez for the power. So let's hope Stowie can keep it up.
Yeah, for sure. I think we hit about everyone in the lineup at this point. Eli, if you want to bring up the probables for the series and talk to us about, as I've mentioned, the three-headed monster. What should the Marlins expect from these three guys from Seattle?
Yeah, Gilbert to me has kind of separated himself from the rest of their starters. I mean, the one difference between the rotation this year and last year is George Kirby, I think, has been out for basically the season so far. It's still a pretty deep group, though, with the rest of the ones that they have. And Gilbert is the one that has the highest upside. He's the one that most consistently, he just misses so many bats with the stuff that he has, and his delivery is just so hard to pick up the ball. It's a guy that gets a great extension off the mound, so it plays up even more than the velo would suggest. That's the biggest mismatch here. You could say that the second game is also quite a mismatch with Luis Castillo, where Castillo's just been, I think he gets taken for granted at this point just because he's been around so long. And I think the fastball velo is coming down as he gets deeper into his 30s. So not quite as dominant a guy, but just extremely reliable year in and year out for the most part. I'm really just more fascinated by the Marlins side of this, honestly, because that has been such a big storyline this year, is how Max has carried the rotation. All these other guys have not given quality or length. It's been the combination of the two that, to circle back to the bullpen discussion, puts the pen in a bad spot and forces you to lean on some of those low leverage guys when your starters aren't going deep into games. There are just a lot of innings to fill. And to me, like both Cal Quantrill and Connor Gillespie, things are starting to heat up now because we won't go too far into it. It's not official yet. I think Ryan Weathers makes a rehab start on Sunday in Jacksonville. That is my feel on this after throwing his final live BP in Miami. So he is getting closer to finally coming back and filling a spot. You would think that Gillespie is the one who's under the most pressure because he has the least track record as a starter. He still has minor league options left, et cetera, et cetera. But Quantrill has been even worse than Gillespie has been to this point in the season, where there was that one exception in the middle against the Braves where he's getting some borderline calls that move the start along. And then outside of that, his control has just been such a big issue. The combination of that and the fact that, his stuff itself just doesn't miss a ton of bats anymore. Well, it never really did, even in his peak years. He's somebody that needs to throw the ball where he wants to, and he hasn't been able to do that for the most part so far this year. Despite the investment that the Marlins made in him, like it has been that ugly that there's only so many of these that he can put together before you get concerned. This is against a Mariners team that, as we said, even if they threaten, that they're a team that struggles to actually cash in on their scoring opportunities. So this is a situation where even being on the road and even given the struggles he's had recently, like you could see a scenario where he actually settles things down and he's able to give them a decent outing. But it's a combination of not getting guys out, but also not going deep into games, even when you're getting hit hard. He's got to do one or the other. Otherwise, you're not really an asset to the rotation. Very big weekend for both him and Gillespie. Regardless, I think somebody mentioned it in the chat about how much longer we have to watch Quantrill instead of Snelling or Quantrill instead of whoever. Yeah, I still lean towards that Gillespie is the one who's on the hotter seat as Weathers. And I don't think Snelling is going to come up imminently. I believe that Weathers they're going to try to keep things steady for a couple weeks, and then Weathers is going to knock off whoever the weakest link in this rotation is right now. But so for those guys pitching back to back in the rotation, facing some of the same opponents coming up, I think as things lined up, Quantrill is probably going to face the Dodgers too coming next week. So it's a big road trip for Quantrill to, and there's just for a guy that has struggled already to this point in the season, he's got to dig deep and try to be the guy that the Marlins expected when they signed him.
Yeah, he would go in that last game against the Dodgers. That would be Cabrera, Sandy, and Quantrill. So We'll see.
Yeah. So before we get into prediction time, I think we will obey LMS request. Isaac, we talked about him a lot yesterday. We were both praising him. Talk about our guy Ronnie Simon, man.
Ronnie Simon, one of the more outgoing personalities in the Marlins organization. Honestly, what a pleasure it was to speak with him for that 2-minute interview. I believe it was on Monday before his first start. Obviously, very limited sample size, 7 ABs, but he looks really comfortable at the plate. He cranked a double yesterday against Brady Singer when no one else was really hitting him after that first inning, so that was encouraging to see. And this was someone that was just demolishing AAA pitching. His stat line with Jacksonville at 15 games, 354, 441 for an OPS of 962. He can play all over. Miami seems to be putting him in left field for the most part. That's where he started yesterday. He DH'd his first start, which was peculiar. I expect him to get at least a couple more starts up there in Seattle. And he's someone, I don't know, I think he's someone that could stick. I know he came out because of some injuries, and some people think that he won't be up here for long. But if it were me, I think he's immensely valuable, especially if someone like Xavier Edwards is struggling. You put him at short. He's a switch hitter, has a little bit of power in the bat, a little bit of hidden power in there. So I think he's a valuable player for any team in Major League Baseball, including the Dodgers. So this is someone that I'm fascinated with. I hope to see a lot more ABs coming up in this road trip. And like I said, one of the more fun personalities in the sport. And I was told he was more like an Emilio Bonifacio personality, according to some. So it's a fun guy.
Yeah, and I concur with LMF with how happy he was after his first hit. The big fist bump and the big smile at first. That was great to see. I think that is pretty much it, Eli. If you want to bring us into prediction time, let's do it.
Let's do it. This is prediction time.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
What was he talking about?
This is this is the Irish goodbye. It was him saying he's really good at Irish goodbyes. I remember this from the Marlins podcast or something.
Oh, I was like, what the hell could he possibly be talking about? Not that he's not good at things. I'm just curious. Okay.
Yeah. There's an overview of the leaderboard to this point. Super sub Lucas on top right there. Things are so bad for me. I don't even make the cutoff. I show the top 20, and I'm not even in the top 20, even though I'm making predictions every single series. So off to a very slow start. Myself, among us, our group right here, Kevin is up top and closest in the lead. We try to predict how many games Marlins are going to win in each series. Who will be the series MVP is determined by win probability added. I was having some conversations with super subs about this because about the process, the fact that Max Meyer was the clear MVP of the last series, but nobody picked him. We got to get better as a collective picking this stuff. Still over 24 hours until first pitch. So if you're a super subscriber or if you want to become one, go to the site right now, fishonfirst.com/subscriptions. Time to sign up, and you just comment on there's the kind of icon at the top of the page that points you to where you leave your prediction before every single series. We keep track of them throughout the entire season. It gets very competitive. And there's still time because we're only 8 series down to this point, 40 something to go. Still time to catch up if you so choose to do so. But that is where I am at to this point with this contest. And so still time, but anytime between now and first 2024 Marlins, this kind of slump at the start of the season. I'll turn it around a little bit once I call up the kids, I guess, trade away every guy in my mind, all the veteran talent that I have trying to make these predictions. So that is where we're at.
Oh, Isaac didn't even make the cutoff either, right? Oh my God.
I said that. It's been awful for me. I haven't gotten a single MVP correct. And I've only gotten 1 series prediction correct. So it all changes now.
I got 2 MVP. Oh, I got Harper and Schwallenbach. Okay.
Yeah. So I can cue up the music, and we'll usually start with Kevin, but in this case, we'll mix it up and go with Isaac first. Oh, once I get the background ready.
Alrighty. I believe Miami is going to out west, and I think that the Marlins are going to fall 2 out of 3, unfortunately. Logan Gilbert, in a very limited sample size, a minuscule .66 ERA against the Marlins. He is your series MVP.
Over to Kevin. Your predictions.
I'm going to go with the Mariners taking 2 out of 3, and I'm going to go with the other Mariners starter, Luis Castillo, as the series MVP.
Okay, Mr. Host, Nate Karsmer.
I was pessimistic last time, and it bit me right in the butt. So Let's do it. Marlins take 2 out of 3 in Seattle. They're going to start this West Coast trip out hot before they play the Dodgers. Let's not get into that right now. Series MVP, he's going to come back. I think Otto Lopez, he's been hitting the ball not too hard recently, but I feel a bounce back coming, and that team will work.
I will go with the Marlins as well to win 2 out of 3 in this particular series. Yeah, so take it with a grain of salt because of how bad I've been so far at seeing this coming. I do think they're facing the Mariners at the right time in that they do have an extra off day coming into this. I've shared my concerns about the bullpen, but with that extra off day, you're in a situation where you can lean heavy on the guys you actually expect to get outs. It feels like Gillespie and Quantrill are due for having a better outing, and they're facing a team that, despite the potential that it has, haven't really coalesced in order to put up explosive numbers. So I think one, if not both of them, have a much better outing than we've gotten accustomed to seeing in recent weeks. For series MVP, I will ride with, why not, Eric Wagman. Even if he's not in the lineup every single day, he's been so consistently productive with the quality of his at-bats even when he's in there, maybe off the bench. I'll say that he has a very big pinch hit at some point over this weekend in order to put the Marlins ahead and make the difference, getting them within a game of 500 at the end of Sunday's activities.
All right, then that'll do it for us. Ending a little bit early, but it was a good 52 minutes. Got a lot in this time. So thank you all for tuning in. One last reminder, if you guys want to support us, get our merchandise, go to aboutthefans.com and use code FOF10 for 10% off. But yeah, I think that'll do it. For Eli, Isaac, Kevin, I am Nate. Thank you guys for tuning in, and go Fish.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.